back to EUL Playday 3, and we carry things on after a full packed schedule. Our first 3 games going well. We now have Team Heroic versus MNM Gaming. This one I know could be a good one, Fabian. You've, I think, been eyeing this one quietly as a potential good matchup.
I think this could be probably the best game of the day. That's my expectations on it. Because Heroic have just been plowing through the entire league. Last stage, this stage, they're just keeping on showing people how to play Siege. It's simple. They just do simple. And now we're going up against MNM. MNM knows how to play the game. They just need to show up on the day. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But if we go back to Heroic for a second, they just have all what it takes. They have good entry fraggers, they have a good support system, they have good shot calling, they have good in-game. There's just everything is just connecting to them, and they seem to do things together as a group. And then when someone is not part of the group anymore, they take control of their own flanks with a system of drones that they've already set up. So they're playing, in my eyes, perfect Siege right now.
Perfect Siege. Strong praise for Heroic there. What about the other side and MNM, Hap?
It's difficult. Like, as you said, they might show up, they might not show up. It's a bit of a 50-50 at this point. Are they going to be able to put some good rounds on the board here against Heroic? Maybe even grab some points? I still firmly believe that MNM is not going to be walking away with 3 points here today. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying I don't think it will happen because Heroic has been plowing through the league. Might even call it a Farmers League. No,
that's the
okay. Oh, sorry. Trying to make a joke there, but either way, MNM, MNM, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. They went to SI. You know, they've shown their capabilities. They just need to consistently start showing that.
Fabian, I'm interested in your perspective on what I've called the MNM tactical timeout. We've seen it twice now, where they've been 6-3 down and come back and just won that game outright. How much is that down to the coach? Is it down to the players? You know, what is having that kind of an impact for a team in a tactical timeout?
So when they played against Rogue on the first Playday, they were down. The first halves ended up in 3-3, and then they went on to attack on Chalet. Chalet's an attacker favorite map, so it's looking good, right? Then they go down 6-3, they take that timeout, and they did it entire last stage as well. They have this effect of figuring out during those 45 seconds what their opponent are doing correctly and then finding the counter to it. Against Rogue, it worked flawlessly, right? They just came back, took all the rounds remaining after that, and secured themselves 2 points. It didn't work too well against Wolves, but then again, the entire game plan against Wolves seemed to be kind of skewed. They just ran in on their own and died kind of a lot in their attacks, and then their defenses, I mean, they lost 6 attacks, so you need to win every single defense to get any points. They didn't. They are very smart with their timeouts. They're using them correctly, and they seem to get an understanding of what's going on when they use them.
Do you think they're going to find themselves in a similar position today, Hap?
Consistency is key, right? If they've been able to do it so many times before, then who knows? But maybe they'll just be on 6 first, and they don't need to call that tactical timeout.
A bold call.
What happens then? If they are the ones to reach match point.
Very true. How well can they counter the tactical timeout?
It's going to be used against them on 6.
That's going to be the question. Well, one question remaining is where we will be playing this one, and we do have our map bans ready, so we'll bring those up and have a little look where this one's going to be taking place. We're almost ready. The lobby is 9/10. We've got Theme Park, an interesting one. Not a map that we see too often, Hap.
No, and I like this map because it has a bit of both, right? A bit of that fragging potential that you need to make something happen in the dying seconds. For example, if you need to push into initiation lately, or if you need to push in the throne room with the dying few seconds, it really comes down to that gun skill. But at the same time, the strategy is also leading here. You need to make sure that you open up everything that needs to be opened up. So, in my opinion, healthy mix between both aspects of the game.
It really does. It's one of the few maps that still is kind of defender favorite as well. And as you say, the fragging power really matters. One thing that may lean towards, and like for MNM, is they're really good at entry fragging. Like their statistics for entry fragging have been really good. If they can do that on this map, starting attack, that will be something that can win them the game. If they struggle with that, they go onto such a map against Heroic, who are playing flawless defenses. If they don't get those early entry frags, I think they're going to struggle. If they do, I think we can see a very even game here.
It's certainly going to be an interesting one. I mean, My question really is, if MNM can get a win here, do we feel that that's then a building block where they can realistically go to the major? Because hitting a major in the second stage in EUL, that's going to be something.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, third Playday still, if they manage to get 3 extra points, they're on 5. What does that put them into? Is that
5 in total. They have 2 points right now with an overtime win. And
they'd level them up with BDS.
They would go, somewhere around that. What's most important about the game, if they snatch 3 points, they snatch 3 points against Heroic. Not a lot of teams will do that.
Yep.
So if you can grab points off them, you kind of get yourself those free points in a way. Obviously, they're hard worked for, but they're free points that most other teams will never get access to.
Well, that is that then. We have got Heroic and MNM. We've got 10 players in the lobby, and there is only one more thing to do, and that is to see, as Fabian thinks, is this going to be our matchup of the day? Is it going to be the best Siege that we will see tonight? Well, it's going to be Emmett and Fresh who will take you through it. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Tim. And yes, we will be finding ourselves at a precipice. Could it be the best Siege? You kind of hope so, but with some of the games that we've seen before, is the bar that high?
I think immediately following that last match, the bar's not particularly high, but I'm really excited for this one because I absolutely love watching how Heroic play. They're genuinely, I look up there with Wolves, they're my favourite teams to watch at the minute. The way that they play in synergy, 5 people achieving the same objective, they actually split those 5 people down into 2 subsets of 2 teams, and then one guy usually holding the flank when they're on the attack. And the map for me is the biggest thing. The last time I believe these two went head to head on this particular map. Now, the teams have changed, the rosters have changed, but it would have been MNM Gaming up against Kavana Gaming in 2020 Challenger League. So a long time ago,
A little bit of a distance.
that particular game is the best game of Theme Park ever played out. Now, I you know, this was before Theme Park was removed, and it's been re-added since. But that was an absolute banger of a game. 8-7. Now, the people that played in that, only for MNM, the only remaining player is Users. Nate from Navi played in it. A couple of other players that aren't playing Siege anymore played in that for MNM. From the Heroic side, they were Kavana at this point. It was Sloth, Grizzly, and Gorgona that played in that. Obviously, Benja and Uno have been picked up since. So there is some history, but there's very limited history. We've not seen either of these two teams on this map in the last year.
You don't see a huge amount of theme, to be honest, especially in EUL. It doesn't raise its head too often. It's, you know, it gets played around on the global scene, but it's not always been a sort of go-to for the dynamic and the rhythm of the game that EUL liked to bring back when they were contenders, and now when they're not, at least we're starting to get a bit more of a stretch to it. To be honest, Heroic are always a team that we like to see dabble with maps, and MNM in their various rosters, we've seen play theme a few times. We've seen it be the heartbreak, and almost the breakthrough was the time when I think it was the roster, I'm going to test it now, it was the promotion game, and it was the very final map against the Benelux team, Gamma. And it was decided on theme, and they were able to win out, and it was a hell of a game.
Yeah, I think so. I think Theme is always a really good map, but the reason that it doesn't get played in Best of Ones, in case you're thinking, you know, first EUL stream or whatever, first time watching CG Esports, I've not seen this map before. And the reason being is that it's very defender-sided. Teams consider it quite defender-sided because the map is absolutely massive. Look at the amount of rooms just on that top floor alone. It can be an absolute maze. The same goes with the basement as well, the bottom floor. So many rooms to clear, which means for the attack, if you spend time droning the whole map, you will run out of time to attack. Therefore, you will see teams play the Montaigne a lot, play Shields a lot, and take liberties fundamentally with trying to clear the map. Nello going straight on the Montaigne as if we'd already pre-planned that. Now, the reason that you don't see it in Best of Ones is because it's considered so defender-sided. Obviously, you've only got the one Best of One. The team that starts on the defense will have a significant momentum advantage going into the second half of the map of the fixture, which is why teams tend to go away from it, especially when they know that they won't be starting on the defensive side.
Well, the Monty's going to meet a clash. They're going to see if they can try and slow it down. As you said, theme can be a heavy, hot, and slow map, and that's the game that Grizzly might see if he can respond. And Grizzly has had good split so far. He's been able to get himself dug in. It's been obviously a continued heroic story for Heroic. They couldn't quite hit the meter, and they sort of came into this split and surprised, I think, a lot of people based on expectations of where they could land. You can see Tyrant underneath. The Ana has grenades, might wait for the call of the player, and the Clash just drifting a bit closer, but the Clash is going to play it a bit more cautious, knows it's all soft underneath there and doesn't want to get caught out. The hop in comes at the top of Dragon. You can see that they're getting control of the computer as well, and instantly the Monty says, this bathroom, this is mine.
Yeah, but the curious thing about the Monty is the interaction with the Clash as well, because Monty obviously takes a lot of damage from Clash, and the Clash can directly front up the Monty. You can have this stalemate of the two shields facing each other and the two supporting players facing each other. Now, of course, for Heroic, they've got fallback options here. The Clash can go through and have another little look-see, relatively risk-free, and you'll see the Monty straight away, as soon as the Clash is there, drop back off. But the site, of course, is... You know, there are layers, there are extensions back for Heroic. They've got places to drop off too, as we will see Soltov get an unreal nade onto Uno, and that will be the first blow going in the way of MNM.
Great opener there, put some pressure onto that side. The swing onto the site and means that if you're holding in towards that vault side, suddenly there's an option. You have to make sure they don't get that swing round from computer, and that's why Grizzly has stepped up into this spot. The Monty doesn't care too much. He's going to take some of the ticks of damage as the peppering comes over the side. The pings are in, and so is the Monty. That's the danger. There's Sloth, though. Takes Solotov, and suddenly that Monty is a little bit more isolated than Nello probably wanted to be. You can see some smoke, some pressure, and some assistance. Candela's, I think, being rolled around on the side as well. The Clash just has to hold a button, and they're trying to step in, but they see probably less than we do. The kit, well, it's tucked around on the corner. They're not quite able to get anything cemented as of yet. They're hoping to get it off, and there it is. Didn't quite show up on the right-hand side, but the plant was put through, and now it's seeing if they can hold on to it. Nello's in the corner. They're aware of this. The pings come through. They'll call it off. The hit on the screen and use this, hitting out Benja, dropped on the side, the drop and the swing and the pistol, the peppering fire. There's the Monty gone. A 2 versus 2, a very important take on that player in the corner. Grizzly, oh, he did not last very long on that defuse. Gonna see if he can just try. Now Gorgona pop round onto the side. There's one on the door itself. 17 seconds, have to lead in. Not very far. Neo locks it out.
Absolutely fantastic use of Monty there by MNM. In terms of just taking that damage, and that once that nade kill came off, that was the trigger point. We can go into the site there. We can actually go into initiation, get behind, get covered, use the Ying, use the smokes. And even if the Monty is there, can't really do too much without us knowing because of the great placement of the smokes. I think it was Usus on the Ying that's played excellently there. And he's been having an excellent season for MNM, by the way. One of the real kind of shining lights, especially with his plant coverage. He got a really important plant coverage coming in when they went up against Rogue on Chalet. Basically single-handedly won the round because of his plant coverage. And he had excellent plant coverage there. Should have anybody have aggressed through the Incandelas, through the smokes, and tried to aggress onto the planter.
It was strange. I saw them planting, but it didn't show up on the right hand side. So I was like, are they? Am I wrong? No. They pulled it off. They got it in. They just kept on the pressure, and I think that was really well played by Nello. It's a dangerous risk to just sort of batten down the hatches. They took that early pick. They pushed themselves further and further behind it. They knew they had a little bit of ground, and they wanted to make sure that they could capitalize upon it, because it's suddenly, as I said, at the moment, as soon as you get that pick, you have to try and pull something around. You cannot just obviously leave that uncontested. Even if they swing in, they can put pressure onto your vault hold, and then obviously the dive all the way through, they can get that planted, and well, they just couldn't hold off enough.
Yeah, it was good usage, and like I said, as I was going in the preamble about Theme Park and how much I loved it, was Monty can be so effective. There's a reason why when some teams play Theme Park, you would ban them away. You know, I think back particularly to the G2 of 2020. Whenever they play Theme Park, get rid of the Monty, take it off them, because they were so good at taking ground with it, because it allows you to take liberties with, you know, drone work and clearing out rooms, because you can just obviously walk a shield in. Anyway, Heroic have decided to go onto the bottom floor, onto Armory and Throne, and basically they've gone for a vertical roam. They're going to roam up upstairs and really trying to lay that time, force those drones, the utility, take it away, and then fall back to site. But Gorgona needs to be really careful once again with nades. But Usus, he doesn't have an idea that there, and Gorgona's peeked up. He's managed to peek 2 and get 2 entry kills. Not great refragability there from the side of MNM.
I mean, I was about to say it was almost an opener with a grenade once again, but Gorgona, he's kind of found a bit of fight back in, finds a third. Double Dragon down to the bottom, takes them out of the game. Tyrant is removed. They were playing underneath the hatch before, and, well, to say it put the two remaining MNM players in a tricky position, a bit of an understatement. They were all dropped before they really got a true taste of the inside of the building. They've lost the Candelas and the smokes that worked on their push before, and the pressure they could apply there. They've utilized the grenade and at least found the first. But you're looking at what is one of the most locked-in sites in any sort of Siege competitive map. You're looking at not having your hard breach. You got a lot of soft, which is great, but then it comes down to just 2 doors.
The problem with Theme Park as well is that even when you bring all the soft breach, that might happen, but also you can get the soft breach over a limited amount of armory thrown, and as we will see, the Uno will get the final kill on Nello. You can't bring enough attacking operators on Theme Park for what you want to achieve. If you bring 2 or 3 breaches, you're struggling with nades, you're struggling with clear. If you bring more soft breaches, you're struggling with hard breaches. There really isn't a perfect lineup, especially if you're trying to incorporate that Monty. But one thing that you've got to do, whichever operators you bring, is you've got to drone and you've got to clear out Gorgona with a crossfire. You can't just be allowing him to take one. And the first gunfight that he took onto Users was completely unexpected on Users' part, and then he flicked directly onto Nello. You can't be allowing that to happen when you're attacking this map.
Well, it's been a good response here, and I think it was the early strike. Gorgona popping off and able to find 3 at the top of Dragon Stairs. It's asked for a bit of a change of face. I think one of the things on the first round that it's probably worth highlighting is a lot of that came from Nalo as an IGL. You assume the positions he was taking, the calls and the pings that came through, the combination of utility behind him being on the other side of that push maybe made them suffer a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Drug Lab's a curious site, because not a lot of EU teams tend to play it. Because if you think about the fundamentals of it, you can isolate just a plant in that far north corner using the window. And that pre-placed drone, by the way, right up inside, oh, it will get spotted out. Very unfortunate. But you can isolate essentially by taking control of basically not much map control and playing on the windows outside. You can't isolate plants above, inside of the site. That's why you're seeing a Frost and a Goyo and a lot of utility denial to try and deny that away by the defenders. There's not a great deal of vertical above the site either. So if you manage to get in and get a plant, it's going to be very hard for the defenders, to retake it.
I'm curious to kind of get a taste here. They played with the idea of the Monty once again, pulled off. They've got the Thatcher. They've got a bit of a drive round onto the side of Throne. They're giving themselves that second route through. You want to try and force the players out of barrels and now try and capitalize upon the second story. Apparently, Gorgona once again in this power position towards the cash side, and once again has a lot of bodies around him. One more this time, and whether he smelt the scent on the wind, he's opting to not try and stick it this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the smart play is to just shoot a drone and fall back, and that's pretty much what Gorgona will do. MNM are much more considered that there might be some presence here from the defenders. It's actually a bit of a vertical hold and a horizontal hold coming out from the defenders. You can see they've set their stall out on the west side of the building, and they're also going to extend in Armory Throne. So it's kind of... It's a split approach, and my big problem with the split approach is when the attack takes a direct 5vx engagement onto it, you only have 2 or 3 defenders max defending either the vertical or the horizontal, and therefore holes can be found by the attackers.
It's a little bit of a moment here, a little bit of a silence. We've had every player the longest alive so far, which, to be honest, with the pace of how this map usually goes, makes the most sense. It's a surprise that it's been quite strict and pacey before, and here it's a bit more of a slow creep, a crawl over the top, the control they're trying to get. They've been able to get themselves a little bit more of an angle, but Heroic still have some of this presence up top. There's also the stretch round onto the yellow stairs. They're trying to find these angles, MNM. They're trying to find some of these cuts and corners, and the first doesn't work for them. Grizzly strikes up, takes care of Users on the approach there, trying to finally find his way across the split of the map. Solotov bouncing a grenade just onto the door. Doesn't quite get the catch on Grizzly. He rotates out 40 seconds, and they're back down to the drug lab.
And once again, look at the lack of refragability coming out of MNM. It's taken them 2.5 minutes. They might not know that they've got control of top floor. They're very kind of cautiously pushing across now, and they need to go. There's only 25 seconds to go. They are so slow on time here as Heroic get themselves back onto site.
I think that's it now. It's 15 seconds, and they're the man disadvantage, but they're going to see if they can try and force their way through. A bit of a pop of the Goyo ability, and through the soft, the spray start to get a bit of a connection, but not many bullets in that gun. The C4 doesn't get the catch because Grizzly is able to find his second. There's Sloth over the top, pre-firing a Tyrant, finally finds one for himself, but with the door locked and set on fire, nowhere to go.
Yeah, and it was always going to go that way. As soon as Heroic got that very first kill onto users, it was an absolute trigger point. And the one thing that I love about Heroic is the conviction that they will just completely rotate. They trust their calls. They trust their processes. They got the kill onto users. They could have stayed and fought for top floor. But actually, what's the point? They'd got the kill. They'd wasted a boatload of time. Get yourselves back on site and let's play the stage 2 of this round. They did just that. And obviously, MNM, they had no drones. They had no utility. They had absolutely nothing to know where players were on site. And they were just walking into guns and crossfires. Absolutely nothing MNM could do at that point because they'd lost the round in the mid-round there by being so slow.
Slow is the cost. Slow is the big cost on a map like Theme, where slow is sort of where it sticks. It's that unfortunately delicious molasses gameplay that works very well for a defender team. But I also like how Heroic, as you said and pointed out, they keep themselves sort of stacked up. They have the presence above the site. They have that presence where they're sort of meeting the makers, and the hands of MNM are makers they know very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Heroic, they're going to go for a full site rotation here as well. So they started off on initiation, they then went to Armory Throne, then to Drug Lab and Storage, and then finally they're going to try bunks and dorms over on the top floor. Now, obviously, the first round they tried initiation and office, and that's a very similar site. Both sites on the top floor of Theme Park play out in similar directions, so it's no surprise that MNM are going to bring the Monty again. This time, however, instead of MNM attacking from the east side and the site being on the east side, the site just shifted to that back line that Heroic will be able to defend a little bit more comfortably, because it means that MNM, they have to take just a little bit more ground if they want to walk themselves in with a Monty and try and achieve a plan.
I mean, it worked for them the first swing round, but you assume Heroic, as I've said, they are well aware of the opponents that they're up against here, and they have at least a little bit more of a potential option. And obviously, it is a different side. It's a different method of bringing some of that control in, not quite as close to the fire and the punch as it was before. The extra space and the stack in means that there's still room to clear, and that is room that is putting pressure onto MNM. The ping, the fight, the swing, and the pre-fire goes against him. Benja had the call, but users had the response. There goes a bit of an early trade. They lost out on the entry, but very importantly, made sure they didn't lose out on the man.
Yeah, and you fundamentally don't mind that of your MNM. I've been criticising the fact that their refragability has been pretty poor so far. They did lose the first engagement, but users was there to refrag it back out. Heroic actually, curiously, are actually playing a turtle strat here. Normally what you'll see is you'll see teams extend over to the east side, but Heroic, they've reinforced the walls off. They're going to even try a bandit trick with Gorgona. He's playing close breach, and that's why MNM, as you can see, they're having to go for these walls, the office walls, the top catwalk wall there, and then use the Monties to try and swarm from that side, because Gorgona will just be too easy to bandit trick over inside of the site.
Finally, a bit of pressure onto the opposite side. Solotov's going to see if he can try and lead in. They have some eyes and angles, and they're hoping somebody decides to poke their head around, but they need a bit of that pressure onto Cafe and Arcade. They cannot just hit this with the single angle and the hammer. Even though it's the 4 versus 4, you do need to at least draw some of the attention away. As we said, the funneling nature of this game, regardless whether you have a Monty, does not make it easy. It is a little bit of a tunnel. Usus, he's got himself a bit stacked in and got himself into Uno, takes the kill and the cake, and Sloth has to pull himself back behind the chassis. The burn on the ADS, Grizzly holding onto the angle, opening to get this surprise right into the Monty. Do they know? They know. It's a spray. It's aggressive. It's popped and round. There is a triple there for users. Solotov gets one more. Suddenly just a very injured Sloth. Not for very long.
And I think we see there just the value of the Monty creates absolute chaos. And I was getting a little bit worried in the late round there that it was a 4v4 from MNM's point of view. And the big problem with that is that you've got a Monty. So essentially, when you think about the guns up, it's a 3v4. You've got one source of constant information with a shield in front of him, and then you've got 3 guns up supporting the Monty against 4 defenders with guns up. So fundamentally, the defenders had advantage. and the time and the site and all the utility setup that comes with it. However, Users, he's been that star man on MNM that makes things happen when they need things to happen. He rotated it all the way through to Cafe, got himself a 1-for-1 pick, won that 1-for-1 pick, and that's where the round was won and lost, was when Users got that 1-for-1, because what that means is that you can then have a 3v3 in gunfights, plus your constant source of information on the Monty that created the chaos, and we just saw exactly how that happened, especially with that engagement onto Grizzly, who's trying to fight out a Monty and somebody behind him will lose it out. Good round from MNM, good use of the Monty, and to be honest, I'm not surprised to see them sticking it, even though they will be going up on the basement site against Heroic that are defending the Armory Throne, because it's been so crucial for them in their 2-round wins.
Once upon a time when Theme was first sort of brought in, it was pretty heavily skewed into the side of defenders. It has obviously since had a bit of a long go, but 2 attacking rounds with still a chance at 2 more here does give MNM really good momentum.
Yeah, it's not too bad actually, to be honest. Obviously the general skew of the attackers of the 50-50 split is a lot more maps are 50-50 due to attacker repick. They're not so much defender sided anymore. I think the army band skews it a little bit more towards the attackers, but even still, Theme Park has been known to be a defender sided map regardless of that. So I think MNM, if they manage to get another round and get a 3-3 split, it will be incredible for them going into their defensive half.
Ooh, it was close. It was almost Kokona doing bits at the top of Dragon Stairs once again, but well, they're starting to piece together that game a little bit more. Some of the pressure from Tyrant, he is underneath. He is meeting maybe a little bit more of a presence here than he was before. Uno isn't too far away. Obviously, inside the site, they have the swing onto the door if they want to take it, but Tyrant is in that risky position where he wants to try and potentially do, hey, Des, you listening? An up nade against player through the open hatch, or just try and catch them if they try and rotate down Dragon Stairs. It is that open hands, big open mid and big open pressure, but they don't need it. There is Tyrant, there's that up nade I talked about, and there is that opener.
Yeah, Gorgona's pretty unfortunate to die to that, to be fair. Literally just strafed 2 steps to the left and strafed into the up nades. Heroic still control a lot of the vertical though, which means as much as there's a Thatcher on the board, as much as there is an Ace on the board and a Ying, there is still going to be a lot of time expended by MNM trying to get control of the verticality, and even if they do that, then you're still going to have 2 Heroic players potentially to retake it. However, they've chose to drop off. They've chose to extend a little bit horizontally outside of sight, and what that means is that whenever MNM do go for a breach, whichever side they choose, MNM can then collapse onto it. It's a 4v5 though, so it's going to rely on the site guys holding onto the breach and the doorways when the key pressure comes in.
They can start getting some of the work done that before they had no option to. Last time they'd already lost 3 players based on the heroics of a single Bulgarian, but this time, well, they're suffering inside the site. They almost just dropped 2 of their own. The C4 doesn't quite get and net the victim it had before. There's long arm sword of hope and prayers and praise by Wamai, but you're also still looking at 30 seconds. It only takes a bullet to stop a plant going down, and it only takes 1 risky player. So MNM still need to try and keep up this mantle of pressure. Seems like they have an idea of the player in the showers. Seems like, well, they have the player as well. Grizzly is gone. They have that control round on the side of the site. The Candelas want to roll behind the smokes. They're going to wait for that fire to pass, and Sloth almost suffers on the wrong side of it. Tyrant leans into the fight, finds his 3rd. Back on the back, it's Benja, but with the double, he still has 3 more to get. The ace for the clutch is not his.
Oh, so unfortunate for Heroic, especially that engagement onto Grizzly. If he'd have managed to win that out, then he completely had the split and the kind of backside access for Heroic, and then they just have to hold the breach and the front. And I think in the end, actually, they only had to hold the doorway, but unfortunately, there was just too many angles that they had to consider. The vertical split, the dragon door, too many places, and of course, the Yin Candela's going off at the same time. I think MNM scraped that round, but to be honest, that's all they need. That's a 3-2 attack split on Theme Park, regardless, on what is widely considered a defender-sided map. MNM have absolutely taken the ascendancy here, and it'll force Heroic into another site change. They're going to go back up to the top floor, back up to that bunk side.
I think at this point with Heroic, I mean, if they're not quite able to get that connection on the 3-3, you do have the Thatcher on the board, which does open some of the options here. But to be honest, the way that we've seen the approach from MNM, it's not really been the biggest drive behind them, as I say it. It gets removed off the board. They're more than happy to take a swing, sort of move up into either the individual fight that we've seen them take on the top of Dragon before against that single loose player, or the sort of close down with the Monty.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nello once again will show the Monty. He did it in the last round. He did it to me in the last round. I was saying, oh, I'm not surprised to see them play off the back of the Monty. And then right at last second, he changes off. He's just done it again in this round. So double breaches, Twitch, Diana. That's probably about the best composition you're going to get. Maybe a Ying instead of a Twitch. But it worked. Muses has been playing exceptional, to be honest, whichever operator he's on. So if he wants to play Twitch, let him play Twitch, in my mind.
I mean, Usus is a player that has played great Twitch games. If we're going to talk about the history of MNM, we can always talk about the history of a lot of their players as well, and even clutching out rounds and maps like Chalet with an F2 that we've always seen be a bit of a big beast in that breakdown. But can they just find one more here on their final approach? Nello taking the mantle of that Thermite. They've pulled away from the Monty. They can instead see if they can try and lean in a little bit more aggro and get this early control over the top once again. Last time it was a Monty take that was that opener, and for the closer they're going to instead see if they can try and drive themselves a little bit more direct.
Yeah, and MNM, they really figured out their refrag issue. Once they started figuring that out and started playing as a team, you see they're much more difficult to break down in the side of Heroic. They're not finding the same freebies. They're not finding the same man advantage they previously did. And MNM, they're keeping it really simple. Every single attack is starting on the east side, and they're working across. Whether that be on the bottom floor or the top floor, it's the same thing. This Valcam is getting incredible amounts of information, by the way. I think it might have just been spotted out by the side of MNM. It has. It's like they've got a direct clean feed into seeing that. Maybe it probably seen on a drone. But once again, it was getting great information.
Yeah, you saw him turn around. You saw him get the read there and know exactly where he needed to be. And I guess we'll see if the responsive information does that. It does. Kokona finds Solotov. I'll take my camera. I'll take your life is that quick response. The sledge is gone off the board and still with at least a grenade in pocket. Luckily, they have 4 more.
Yeah, they've got 4 more, but they've also not got a great deal of burn. They've got 2 smokes, which Users has tried to use them for execute. So there's only Nello that can actually burn. But the Twitch drone, of course, will get rid of one of the 1-eye magnets. Flash will come in, and the nade will come in. Doesn't actually get it, but that would have been great utility clear from the side of MNM, but for the missed nade.
Well, now more of them start to rain through. Bentra and Gorgona both take a sliver, but as I said before, this is such an awkward push. You got to try and take a fight, and Sloth loses it. Tyrant took it wide, took the player, and the Sloth was caught a bit unaware. At least Uno can find one before Tyrant doubles down, gets himself a second in that 7-second period. Gorgona suffers on the scrape of the site, but you're looking at 15 seconds. Smoke canisters posted onto the plant and the rotate. Look at the kit, it needs to be recollected, especially when you're starting to lose more and more bodies. Gonna take the rotate, and the fight itself swings and pre-fires, gets the down, won't know until they get that clarity. There it is, but it's a 2 versus 1, 6 seconds. Heroic just find the 3 for 3.
Grizzly is an exceptionally consistent player. He's he's so consistent, and he's finally having an unreal stage. By the way, one of the best rated players for the side of Heroic. And I just want to point out that whilst he won that round there, he gets the diffuser cold with about 7 or 8 seconds left. His shield was left up, and that was the critical point for MNM that they missed. If he can't play that shield and go and play that position from safety, I think MNM have a real good chance of winning that round based on an execute, but that one missed nade has cost MNM absolutely dearly in this round. And a 3-3, the difference between a 3-3 and a 4-2, especially when you've been attacking onto Theme Park, is absolutely massive. MNM, if they got that 4-2, this game would almost certainly have been wrapped up by now.
It's the distance now. It's seeing how much can be put onto the opposite angle. Can Heroic try and drive some of this? Because the control from MNM on these approaches has been pretty good, but Heroic, they do like to attack. They can be sharp.
The one thing that I like about Heroic's attack, and I talked about it just as we come in, and generally what you will see is you will see them achieving the objective as 5 people. They keep Siege very, very simple. Now, what you normally get is you get one of your quote-unquote fraggers working with a quote-unquote support. So often, it's Sloth and Uno working together to achieve an objective, and Benja and Grizzly. And then Gorgona is allowed a little bit of freedom to play on his own, usually doing a bit of a flank watch roll, this time on Jackal. So just watch out for that, is that how even whoever's in the system, and it looks like it's Uno and Benja this time, the 5 players tend to work together to achieve the same objective with 2 mini teams and 1 solo player. And it's really good to see how flexible they are in terms of that role. They'll drone for each other. You know, if it requires sometimes Benja droning for Sloth or, you know, Benja droning for Grizzly, they'll do it. And they're an ultra flexible team from that point of view, even though they fit into quote unquote conventional roles.
Now we're getting a little bit of a difference in terms of the take here. I commented that we've seen some cafe presence before, but this time it is the lead-in for Heroic. MNM sort of hit the boards on the top of Dragon for pretty much every single approach, and it's seemingly the opposite side for Heroic's game here. Solotov with control of the drones in the hatch for an escape. Gonna see how much he can sort of waste out, especially with Neo on the cover in support of Arcade Stairs. The worry with Neo's position is he knows that there's multiple places to be locked down from, so it becomes that risky game. Hey, I'm here, he says, as a Tracer just flies past the head of Sloth and more follows. He is in a bit of a tricky situation as Solotov tries to do something to stem the player. Here's an approach, there's a swing, and there's Benja.
And there's that approach coming in once again. The 2 players from working from the windows, the 3 players working from Cafe, and they manufactured themselves essentially a 5v1 engagement. Even if Solotov got that first kill, he was getting refragged out almost instantly, and that's what I love about Heroic. From Solotov's point of view, probably stayed a little bit too long there. Neo had decided to completely dip on the alibi, got himself back out of sight. But of course, the site isn't up above. It's actually the first floor site. It's actually the basement site, which means Heroic still have a level of verticality to do and then look for breaching and set an attack going as well. So even though they've got the first kill, it's taken them 2 minutes to establish it. They are a bit behind on time.
Well, Kaid is happy to juggle for as long as they need to, and obviously, as he said, they've got the kill, and now they've got to see if they can try and get a bit further with it. Wants to take out the Banshee, and Users takes out Benja. Suddenly bit back on the far side there. The pressure of the player that swung his way back up to the top. He's going for a bit of a retake here, and, well, the more dangerous this becomes is just any time he's up there. They've now got to leave a player up top, keeping some control over it, and that's Grizzly watching down for the swing. It comes now, and Grizzly's able to get that pickup. They assumed everyone had left for the fight onto site, because there's only 15 seconds, but you still got to have a fight onto site. Lay down behind the back. Nello doesn't mind. He's got the cover from the opposite side. There's Grizzly caught in the crossfire as well. It's all blood either side. And a 1 versus 1 with 5 seconds left. Once again, it's a tricky situation, but you're looking at where's Neo? Oh, he's so far away.
And I think that's the big problem with time on Theme Park. You can be as amazing as you want at getting that first kill and expending 5 people's energy on getting that first kill. But if you're not keeping up a fast pace in terms of getting what you want, what's the point of taking that top floor if you're then just going to spend 2 minutes and then jump immediately down from it from Heroic's point of view? They've got to speed up their attack because their processes are good. They're working, but they're currently very slow, and that's what they lost out to there was time. And I think the assets of the Armory Throne site, in terms of even when you do have a breach, there are so many crossfires that the defenders can hold because it is simply just a kill box. There's so many places that the defenders can hold. It's even when you do it with quite, good time in mind and you can get to the point of an execute, you're still walking into a death trap most of the time.
The good old split death box. A classic lockdown to be able to have the angle.
Where's Split again?
Where is Split?
Oh, classic.
It's a great place to play a single up 9 through a hatch. There it is. Thank you. I'm going to assume... Oh, is this medics or easy? The nodding, I think, means it's medics, because I think easy goes side to side. Yes. Oh, I just heard medics. It's medics.
It's medics. We can hear you, yeah.
And now he's making ghost sounds. Okay, enough about that. MNM, they've been able to take their first defense, but a 3-3 means, well, they've still got distance to put in. Usus wants to be that bearer of bad news from the cash stash, and the news is hopefully, I'm going to shoot you in the face.
Oh, this is a horrible spawn peak, by the way. Sloth needs to be super careful of this, as Usus will go out, will get the first kill, and Usus an intelligent player. Sloth's been caught unaware there. No drones in cash, which is almost criminal when you're going from the cash side. Usus finds a second one on Uno, and this round is done. 30 seconds in. Already a 5v3 for the defenders. There is really no way Heroic pull this back unless MNM decide to give it back to them.
I mean, I was going to say there, you get 1, you get 2, fool me once, at least they've got Solotov back, but what else do you have to work for? It's that sort of worrisome reflection on when we saw the same sort of fate handed to MNM before, a 2 versus 4 now. Everything left pretty much to do in front of them, all lost before they truly entered the building. A bit of a lull, a bit of a moment here as they're going to drone. They have all the time in the world. Making it matter is the tricky bit.
Yeah, Gog's just going to try and lurk. And his role here is to try and just get a freebie on any MNM player that passes his cone of vision. It's all on Benja to go and make things work from the opposite side and win his 1v1 engagements. He's got all the way to office. He does have a drone in hand, which means he will spot out at least one player. It will be the Warden of users, but he seems more concerned, to be honest, with the Cafe player. And at this point, they've got to identify a 2v1 onto users and get the kill. Otherwise, there's probably no way to come back from this round. But if they don't get a kill in the next 10-15 seconds, there is absolutely no way to come back from this round.
Peppering some pressure round over onto the other side of the chassis, but nobody is to be found behind it. They're still trying to work away at MNM players that aren't going to overextend too much. Tyrant underneath, waiting for an approach around on the stairs. Could try and take the swing onto the player inside Vault, and does. Finds one more against the Heroic. There's a player right underneath you. Do you know? Well, you'll probably find out sooner rather than later. The bullets, they're peppering themselves down that long, terrifying corridor. See if there's anybody on the opposite side. Nobody has revealed their presence as of yet. 30 seconds. They have no need, no reason to. There's a man with a shotgun tucked around the corner of the door. You at least get that one. Now 30 seconds. You at least get that too. Gorgona. He's driving himself towards the site, but MNM just pop round.
Yeah, and I want to talk about users, and because I think it's easy for me to point out users and say, oh yeah, users, he's having an exceptional game. He's a massive reason why MNM are winning. And he is having an exceptional game, and he is a massive reason why MNM are winning. But I want to talk about why. And it's the magnitude of his kills. It's how important his kills and his play is. I want to go back to the very first round when he was covering the plant on the Ying. Covering the plant, getting kills off the back of that. I want to go back to the round on round 4, on the bunks attack, when he actually went and made something happen in that 4v4 stalemate. And I want to use that last round, round 8, where he gets a double spawn peak onto key elements, onto the Thermite and onto this Sloth on the Ayana. And he's having these massive impact kills. It's not just exit kills in a 4v1. And he's really, if he's having a successful round, chances are MNM are having a successful round.
It's been a bit of a rocky road here. Obviously, the timeout taken on the side of Heroic. They find themselves just one round away from dropping points. And you're looking at where they are on the board and where they might find themselves. I mean, there was sort of this moment here where MNM could, depending on round difference, have jumped up to 4th place if they took this game. I think it was a 7-2, maybe even a 7-3 based on round difference.
I think one of the things that MNM have got going for them, and whilst they did have a particularly disappointing loss against Wolves, is widely considered the best 3 teams in EUL right now. Rogue, Heroic, and Wolves. Now MNM, after 3 games, will have played Rogue, Heroic, and Wolves. And if they continue to get the win, they will have taken 5 points out of a possible 9 against those teams, which means there are easier days to come for MNM. Which means actually that is really respectable. A 5-point haul against those 3 teams is, status for a team that is pushing for the top 4.
I think that's it as well, is there's so much data that runs in based on how these teams are performing, most importantly against how they perform against each other. It's one of those times where we know that for the first time in a while, EUL has had top teams and bottom teams. It is, before regulation change F1 racing, where we're having the faster teams and the slower teams. And it becomes that sort of weight that you have to add in, especially if you're the players playing these games, is the expectation of, okay, well, we've done big bits, and though we might not have up to this point taken that full fat, well, there's a way that things strike back. Grizzly at least gets that revenge, but the kit is cold and will have to be recollected. Yeah,
and that's the hard breach off the board, which really isn't ideal if you're Heroic. That's 1 out, and the cold kit, which will be recollected, as you say, but it's your hard breacher. It's the drug storage site, which means hard breach is less important, though. It's more about clearing out the map control and really forcing the defenders to not have anywhere to play. And this is why you'll see Sloth. He's going to take quite a fast engagement. Heroic have been taking a lot of time to clear out positions, so it's no surprise to see Sloth take a couple more risks and look for a kill on Nello. Won't actually find it, but does have the map control now established for Heroic.
There's a player playing around a window. I was almost expecting users to go for another hop out there, but still that risk is one that he's not quite able to pay. Although Neo is also kind of dabbling around a position where he could rotate round. You can see that they're aware. They have caution. You assume they've got themselves, yeah, there's the drone, locked in to that position. They're not going to get fooled again, but they do still need to try and get some of this spatial control. Looking for that loose player. But it's not just them. There is still this presence, and obviously the kit and the site both being down below means they've still got a lot of structural work to do.
Yeah, a lot of structural work to do, and realistically no time to do it. Although Gorgona has hit an unreal shot onto Users. That's the Starman off the board. It's a 4v3. You've got verticality starting to be established. There is a potential flank on the board here from one of the MNM players. I have just seen a silhouette, I think. He will go for it. No, it will be the kill on Tonello, but there is a flank from Tyrant, but he needs to do this fast, and he needs to do it quickly. And he doesn't do it whatsoever. He's leaving Neo in the 1v4 as someone is coming down yellow stairs. It will be Sloth, will get that kill. Heroic will take that round, and ultimately, they just ran out of lives from the side of MNM.
That timeout came through for them. It gave them that bit of that extra conversation, that edge, and even though they lost that early engagement, they seemed that bit sharper and, to be honest, more aware of the game that MNM was playing around the map itself.
Absolutely. And now, Emmy, I've just got to say this because I can't get this out of my head since you made the reference about F1. RG2 equivalent to Williams. Former success, bottom of the table, and would celebrate any points right now like it was the World Championship.
I mean, we'll have to run the numbers with our equivalent, which is Hap. But yeah, I'm pretty
I can't
sure.
get it out of my head. I had to say it. Oh no. Sorry, G2. Sorry, G2 fans, if you're watching. I feel the pain just as much as you.
You just got to bring it up in other games.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's all that we will say on the matter anymore. Anyway, we're going through to Armory Throne. So MNM couldn't defend the drug storage, drug lab site. They're going to go to Armory Throne. And this was a really good round for them last time. And if you think about it... Sorry, I'm just having technical issues.
Okay, I'll keep talking. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, that's good. Well, I'll keep talking and you just hit the buzzer when you're back, because we've got MNM still circling around the chance of getting themselves locked in for a guaranteed point and an OT. Hey, users, that worked before, but I think we've learned, Heroic have learned, and they're not going to be fooled again. They're not going to throw themselves directly up to that angle. Rightfully so. I'm glad the team talk included and encapsulated the idea of, yeah, they're probably going to try and get aggro against us.
I was on Wikipedia checking some stats for the points earlier, and then an ad came up and I was being played. A very famous artist and a song down my headset at a very loud volume.
Oh, okay.
So if I cut out obviously the perks of casting online, I couldn't really hear too much. So sorry about that. We're back. And we're seeing Neo. He's going to take an engagement. And if you remember rightly, he scarpered pretty quickly the last time that Heroic took from this west side across, and he left Soltov to die. I wonder if he's going to stay a little bit longer now, especially now that Soltov has got that one kill, but will be traded right back out by Uno.
That was a great little take and a great little bit of angle. They've been able to bite back, but here's a very quick rotate at the 2-minute mark as well. For how MNM have often played this before, sure, they still have that single loose player of users that wants to cause some destruction, but again, as I said before, it seems like Heroic have his number. They have learnt not to suffer that same thing. It seems like a stack up wanted to come through there over the top. It's a bit scrappy. And Tyrant doesn't quite feel the confidence to entirely lock it out. Put a bit of fear into Gorgona. Might try and put a little bit more in, but the pings, the reveal, yeah, they've got your number.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would expect MNM to just get themselves back into sight now and just play the doorways and the breaches as they can. It's important for Heroic, I think, that they get some kind of breaching off, because they didn't get it in the last round. And we're going to see Uno open that hatch. Obviously, there's a rotate already from the barrels room as well, which means that you need to give MNM a lot of places that they've got to be looking and holding, and there's only 3 of them. So if you can burst in through 4 or 5 angles, they can't physically hold every angle. So that's the job for Heroic now, is to get another breach opened if you possibly can, and then collapse all at once, and somebody somewhere will find a gap.
Pause, a lull, a moment and 40 seconds for them to try and drive a disadvantage down to a chance to close. Heroic, they have the power and the presence of the site itself still working in their favor, but Well, there's a bite back. There's Heroic driving in even more. They've got their angles locked in. They have that opener, and it's down to Tyrant and Nello with the final 20 seconds to see if they can work behind, as I said, what has already been pretty much opened and controlled by Heroic. The drop on the door. There's one. There's not two. They almost had to spray through. Can't get the connection. Heroic find themselves level for the first time in a while.
They've really started figuring it out together, and that team play together. It comes in, they get a couple of opening kills, and then from there, they get the breach, they get the hatch, and Uno's played a massive role there. He got a refrag, got the breach, and then got a key kill into sight in that 4v3. It was still going to be quite a tricky engagement in terms of dropping the hatch and pushing that barrel's wall, because it's still a similar direction, right? If you think about the directions the attackers can come from, you can hold the kind of door and the breach with the same long angle from the deep kind of fireplace inside of Throne. Inside of Armory. So it was a big kill that Uno got, big impact kill. He might only be going 5-9, but he's had a massive round there for his team. We're going to see MNM go back to a similar site and try it again. When you see that, it normally means that teams feel like they've only got a small adaptation to win it again. So MNM must feel confident that they will only make a very small adaptation, win it again. And I wonder if it's going to be so much of a commitment to the top floor. I wonder if they're going to feign a top floor setup again, but then actually go and play bottom floor and play horizontally across into drug slab, drug storage. As we've seen a nice Cade Claw come out by the looks of it there. And then just try and play horizontally and really try and waste Heroic's time.
Yeah, there it is. Caught all three walls there underneath as well. Really just locks out that top box, gives them a little bit more to work with. And we've said before, this is that lockdown site that a lot of teams did use to turtle, and not quite as easy and feasible when the Thatcher's on the board, but Heroic have decided to try and take the fight elsewhere. They picked up the idea of this loose roam game. I'm going to pick up the idea of this player. There it is. Revealing the spider, and that drone does not get any closer.
Yeah, and it's kind of awkward now because you've now got a drone through the window with two drones as well, just in case there was another spider on the window. Tyrant's going to play close to it, and it's really awkward to drone this top floor, especially with the way that MNM have got it set up. Obviously, Tyrant's playing that position that Gorgona got a massive kill from when he was on the defense himself, so it's a bit of a power position for the defenders, supported by users up on the top dragon stairs.
Sloth pops through, pre-fires an angle that a player has since left. They have themselves a little bit more of a presence over the top, and making it work is that next precious step. Spray and the slightly loose player, but again, Sloth, he's kind of seeing ghosts. They just keep slipping out of range down the bottom of the yellow stairs and then off to the side. There is the split take. Solotov might be a little bit more danger than he thinks, but also decides to try and lean a little bit more into it.
Yeah, he's going to actually take out the Nomad. Oh no, he's going to just play for a C4 in the office. I thought he was going to try and take out the Nomad trap to force himself through the break room there. But I think this is good from MNM. There's a lot of redundancy and a lot of fallback. You can see Tyrant, he's got all the way down over to Tellers by the looks of it as well. Oh no, he's got himself into lockers, and he will just rat about there because that's a not very frequently drone location that can have high impact. So Heroic, they've changed their approach. They're going for the east side, and they're going to presumably start getting some work onto the breach on the east side. Needs to be careful to not be impact tricked, and then late round they need to be careful if they do end up creeping to go towards yellow or split, that they have an appreciation of Tyrant's position, as Benja will take out Neo from the vertical angle.
There it is, the vertical control there. He tried to play against the breach, but it is popped open. As we said, the Thatcher means that job, it's not trivial, but it's a lot closer and faster than the usual juggling that will happen. Still a bit electrified, still not the smoothest route through, but it's a route. That means you can't truly play behind the throw, and you suddenly lose a big angle that otherwise keeps you a little bit more safe. 30 seconds, though. MNM, the pressure is still on them. They at least find one back, but it's Sloth to instantly get that little bit of revenge. As I said, it's a dangerous angle to find yourself situated in, and Nello's going to make sure that he at least keeps it in the hand. This is Tyrant's moment. He finds one. He's looking for the next, but it's Gorgona that pops up a bit closer than he expected. 15 seconds. The flash is around onto the backside. Uno's got the kit in pocket, but barely any health, so if he hops this electric, he's probably going to go down. He's got to find an alternate route, and with Usus still on the board, spraying through, trying to find that connection, and there's one. There's two. There's MNM guaranteeing a point and eyeing up 3.
And I feel like the big problem from Heroic's attacks, I think MNM played that well. They had a lot of redundancy in their defense. And you saw that Heroic couldn't clear the top floor fully. You saw they went for this half clear. The problem with the half clear is that you only get one breach. You can't even go into the barrel side because you've not droned it. You don't know where the MNM players are over on that west side of the map. So you're going in through one breach and one doorway. And like I say, that particular site is all about, do you have enough defenders to look at those angles? And the answer for MNM there was yes. And that was all set up by them delaying, and basically working through their layers of their defense and getting themselves back to site. Tyrant obviously got a great flank off, did get a 1-for-1, but caused significant disruption to Heroic's attack as well. Really good defensive setup from MNM there, and Heroic fell right into it.
Oh, it's close now, and they still think they can be the ones to push themselves over that edge without that time to talk. It is just that one little bit of a difference, but Heroic have definitely been much more of a force to be reckoned with over these past few rounds. It was 3-3 on the opener. There's no reason it can't match that pace in the follow through. This comes with that early kill, that engagement that's otherwise been a little bit back and forth. We've seen a bit more of a control idea of that loose MNM play. The rotations and that sort of exploration of the map itself was something that was theirs, then it wasn't, and then it had a bit of a resurgence. Heroic close to snapping back, but losing that early trade, losing that early sort of spark means that for once they're on the back foot with it.
Yeah, they've been on the back foot a few times, and it's not, you know, we get to see a good test of Heroic's character here because they won't get a full 3 points, but they can get 2 points. They can still win this game. They can still keep themselves in the hunt. They'll lose a point towards, you know, Wolves, who are on 9 points. So they want to be the #1 team. So this round is absolutely point critical for Heroic. We'll see a test of their character as to if they actually have the backbone to be a top team or not, because they're under the cosh a little bit, and MNM, they're absolutely in the ascendancy.
Well, there's a bit of that lean and pressure. The Florist drone, I'm not sure if it did want to take everything out there, but it seemed like there was a player that wanted to try and take out the player that might be there. There is the shield. With that swing around onto the cafe side, and that's the ping, so I'm assuming that was that original target. A Sloth once again in on the opposite side, putting some pressure onto Top Dragon. A full-fledged rotate by the looks of it, entirely picking up sticks, realizing that maybe there's a little bit too much pressure on that direct cafe entrance. They've made a presence, and they don't think it's enough.
Yeah, and the problem with Theme Park is when you just sit in sight, you've got to extend horizontally somewhere, because when you just sit in sight, there can be too much pressure from the attackers, but you've got to learn when it is advantageous for you to drop off. And MNM, they've got a 1-for-1 now. Ben just died. They've lost Solotov for their troubles. I think that's a good trade. Trading an alibi for a sledge. They've got that. They will just fall back into sight. Make Heroic waste the next 30 to 40 seconds. Look at the map control they have. Very little map control out towards the east. There's going to be 30, 40 seconds before Heroic are even ready or thinking about an execute. And already by the time that's happened, there's very little time to execute in a 4v4 at that point in time.
Giving themselves that rotation, that split and pressure. You can see now MNM, they're trying to pick themselves up. Maybe going to play the reverse of their setup. The read has come through that the beat is one behind them. You can see that stack of blue there trying to put their pressure over the top of the yellow stair set. There's a grenade. Is that going to hit that shield? Bounce through, caught out by the disc, but they get the breach open. They get that little bit of extra width. There is still a lockdown, and there is a risky angle here for the Wamai. They might not know just how close they are to the soft on the other side, but that drone is going to give them a bit of a heads up there. They're dancing, dip diving, but not for very long. A 3 versus 3. 20 seconds, and it's the chance for Heroic to see if they can drive this into OT. Gorgona holding onto the angle on the split. They've been able to get themselves a bit of control here. Pre-firing angle, still not entirely sure which from 15 seconds is all that's on the clock. That's got to be a bit of a blow. Uno gets one, Grizzly gets one more. Neo, all that's left to see if he can get the 3 points. A handful of seconds. Uno seeing if he can stick the plant. It's a 2 versus 1. Just sees and catches the swing and the edge of a player. The C4 might not and won't catch them. They're drifted too far away. A post plant tucked in, pre-fired the angle over the top. Doesn't quite get the full connection. Doesn't quite get the second either. They're back and forth over either side. And they did some damage. They didn't quite get the full lock in with the pistol. The entire call on where that player is, but at the same time, just leaves one more tucked behind the chassis, ready for the rotation. They trade out, and Heroic, they push themselves to OT.
Wow, I was just about to say, we've seen Neo get a 1v3 before on match point, and he got the 1v3, but the diffuser was down, which will mean that the attackers win that. That was so close. That came down, and that was a really nicely played by 1v3 by Neo. found out, and just looked for one-for-ones, got the one-for-ones, and won basically all of them with the trade in the end. And I think for Heroic, they collapsed. I've got to say, MNM misplayed that just a little bit, I think. They had enough crossfires, they had enough knowledge on exactly where Heroic were going to come from, and they basically just peeked out and gave Heroic one-for-ones, obviously capitalized on it and got the plant down.
It was as close as it could possibly be.
Yep.
It really came down to it, the trade in the post plant. If it hadn't been a post plant, it would have been an MNM win. And yeah, it was on the back of a almost 1 versus 3 clutch, but still, the fact that those rounds are still almost going into the favor of MNM, and the fact that pretty much every single player on this board is sitting in a good position in terms of getting into the game.
Yep. And I want to say something about Theme Park more generally in the map. We talked about it being defender-sided. We've more or less seen, actually, a 3-3 split both sides on the fact that we're in overtime. But teams in best of ones, if you start on the attack, which is what MNM did, you get the side choice in the overtime, which is what MNM had. Heroic chose the side in regulation, MNM chose the side in overtime. So it will be MNM that starts on that advantageous defensive side and will be looking and the favourites to actually take the full, I suppose, 2 points now that we're in overtime.
I think that's it as well. And for Heroic, with Wolves getting the full 3, that's a bit of a blow, because even if they take this win, they are now in second place. They drop a position, and MNM, as you said it before, it's more points taken from the top 3 teams.
Yep. Yeah, regardless, even if they end up only taking 1 here, that's 3 points out of against the top 3 teams. That's still not bad. If they get the overtime win, that's 4. It's still not bad, and I think they'll go on to have a really successful run after this game, regardless of which way it goes.
The Flores drone finds its way much deeper than it did before. Doesn't quite get the catch on a shield that no longer exists. A slightly different approach, but so is Benja. Got himself very quickly underneath the yellow stairs hole. The Neo, I'm not sure how unaware he is of this approach, but if it's very, then it could be massive. Well, not anymore. The procs pops off, and Benja quickly retreats.
Yeah, and a direct approach this time from the side of Heroic. Previously, they went over towards the east side. The round they just won, they went east side across from that Cache and Top Dragon area. Now they're working with 2 on the rappel, Benja's lurking below, and 2 on the cafe side, which means those 2v1 engagements that they can more or less isolate, they need to be winning them. The first one's going to happen with a nade up from Benja as he's been held by Grizzly, and Sloth gets one on Tyrant on the jump out. Advantage from Heroic, and that's that great team play coming in together to make 3v1 engagements.
Oh, Solotov just caught out by the player upside down, and then the player around on the swing. Heroic, they had 3 different angles and 4 different bodies, 3 of them clutched out by Benja. He couldn't quite sneak up 1 stair set, so he took the second one loud and took the bodies. Neo, it's a tougher clutch than it was before, and he doesn't get a scratch in.
Absolutely, and I'm not surprised to see MNM take their timeout straight away off the back of that round. Heroic have actually figured out that, hey boys, we've probably got the better attacks, we've probably got the better teamwork to create advantageous engagements for us. We can create 3v1 scenarios where we will definitely kill the person that we're going for. At absolute worst, we will get a trade. Now, Heroic have taken that and applied that to, well, what if we just go direct for site? What if we ignore going across from the other side and we just go direct? And it's worked out perfectly for them. And when you start overtime on the advantageous side and you lose out flawlessly, you need a conversation about how it's going to work, which site you're going to go to, which site you think they will go to, because you need to win this round and you're on the attack of, like I say, a very defender-sided map.
It's the most important time to talk, and to be fair, the timeout worked very well for Heroic. They were close to having everything slip away. They took it just before they were on the wire. They were on the wire, but they got themselves past it. Now they are the ones. They're just 1 step away.
Drug Lab and Storage is going to be the site chosen by Heroic. And like I say, it's a curious site because a lot of it was out of the EU meta for a very long time. I know that inside of NA particularly, they like this site. And I think it is all to do with the limited verticality that can be established over it. Once again, they're going to bring the Goyo, they're going to bring the Frost, the Castle, and the Valkyrie, alongside the Bandit as well. But those top 4 operators are the main operators for me, because you're going to have a horizontal extension and a vertical extension from the defense. And you've really got to be fluid as defenders here, because if MNM choose to go completely horizontally or completely vertically, they can clear out the defense pretty quickly. Now, if you remember the last time that these two teams played on this site, you've got to go all the way back to the back end of the first half, MNM took an absolute age, and I'm talking 2.5 minutes to clear out one player in the top floor. They didn't even clear out one player. I think they died and they were in a 4v5. Then they just have to drop and scramble. So that's what Heroic are banking on again, is that MNM take an absolute age on their attacks.
Okay, well, I feel myself repeating these little pauses and little silences, because there's always this moment at the start of all of these rounds when these two teams hit heads of who is going to be the one that leans into their opponent's Benja, playing that C4 under the hatch a bit early, but almost.
And that's why you hear the swing, you know, and the micro engagements that happens is Ben just heard the swing of the hammer, and Solotov pulled the hammer out quite far away from the hatch, expecting the C4 might be there. As soon as Benja hears that with the sound, absolutely he's going to blow the C4. So good engagement there from Solotov not to lose his life, because it's absolutely crucial at this point. You cannot lose your life early and be in that 4v5.
Holding on and seeing if they can keep some of the eyes. The Valkyrie cams that played very well for them before and netted Gorgona a pretty huge take and kill when they needed it most. Is a little bit more of that lean through. And two, there's pressure slowly drilling its way across the bow and the front as Benja, he's popping and dipping and diving, but also keeping himself just a little bit controlled, sort of waiting for a bit of the flat pressure to find its way through onto him directly. There it is. Just happening, knocking on the windows and the walls of the opposite side. Another drone and another bit of caution here from the side of MNM. They've got to try and move behind it as the prox pops off. So does Benja, trying to find his way around onto the corner. Do they know he's still there? No, and for how much utility they did, they finally get the frag, but it took a lot out of MNM.
And what's the cost? They've lost a player. They've lost Nello. The diffuser goes cold, and Benja has very limited remaining utility in this, other than being a player alive with a gun and a C4. Maybe could have got away, probably wouldn't have. And that's a 1-for-1 for Heroic. And once again, MNM have succumbed to this trap of time. Uno's going to be out on the flank as well, and they're only just starting to do the vertical now with only 45 seconds remaining. This is going to be a really tough one for MNM to win.
I think that's it. That's that sort of blow. They got cautious. Tyrant at least got Uno, got aggressive and got that take. They're angling themselves down towards that lockdown on the bottom of yellow stairs, but this loose player, if they can find them, well, that could really change the face and the shape of this round. Suddenly, not just the 4 versus 3, but the 2, and you've still got, obviously, more destruction and demolition to get your way through. The frost mats under the windows in 20 seconds is always the worry. The grenade bounce perfectly played. There goes Sloth. They want to go for the hot hop, and Gorgona's ready to meet them over the side of the bathroom. There's Grizzly stacked up on the door, wants to take the swing, doesn't need to, but gets the second. It's suddenly a triple kill. Grizzly versus Users. Solotov died in the fire. Gonna see if they can stick it. No other option. A quick rotate background. Users should just get the plant off in time, but does he have enough? No! Heroic just get that last split second. GG's on the board. Neo couldn't quite get the lock in, but neither could MNM. It was so close.
Yeah, it was absolutely so close. Heroic playing those win conditions of time perfectly. And who's the man of the hour? He's been having an absolutely excellent stage. Grizzly gets the clutch, has massive impact kills for his team. I talked about Users and his impact kills. Grizzly has massive impact for his team. Once again, Gorgona's gone huge, Benja's gone huge, but in the end, it was Grizzly who won it out. Heroic, they had to dig deep. We said, did they have the backbone? They showed they had the backbone there. 5-6 to 6 to 8-6. Great play from them.
Well, we said he's consistent, and he came through when they needed him most in a tricky, tough game. It is that lockdown, and it is more points their way. Not enough, but MNM, 3 tough games. How high can they climb against the rest? We'll find out later next week. Before that, a desk in our final game. Thank you for joining me from Range for us. It's been wonderful working alongside you. You get a bit of a break from Fabian.
Yeah, it's been great, you know, just jumping on the cast, a bit of a break from Fabian, you know, not having to hear his rants between games about G2. I've mentioned them again. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun casting with you, Em.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure I'm excited to hear what he says. After a quick break, we'll be back with the desk.